You've been told that serious people are successful people. That maturity means gravity. That depth requires heaviness. So you carry everything like it's sacred, every decision like it's permanent, every mistake like it's catastrophic. You worry about saying the right thing, doing the right thing, being the right thing. You analyze, you overthink, you prepare for every possible outcome. And it's exhausting, because somewhere along the way, you confuse taking life seriously with actually living it. You thought that if you just cared enough, tried hard enough, controlled everything carefully enough, you'd finally be safe. But here's what nobody told you. The tighter you grip, the more you suffer. And the joke? Life was never meant to be held that tightly. Here's the truth that'll make you uncomfortable. Life is not serious. You are. The universe isn't asking you to figure everything out. You're demanding that of yourself. Life isn't judging your every move. You are. The weight you're carrying, you put it there. And I know that sounds dismissive. I know you want to say, but my problems are real, my responsibilities are real, the stakes are real. And they are. Sort of. But here's what you're missing. Taking something seriously and suffering over it are not the same thing. You can care deeply without carrying everything like a cross. You can be responsible without being rigid. You can be thoughtful without being tormented. But you've conflated all of it. You think that if you're not suffering, you're not trying hard enough. That if you're not worried, you don't care enough. That if you're not heavy, you're not deep. And that belief is destroying you, because you've turned your life into a performance review where you're both the employee desperately trying to prove yourself and the manager who's never satisfied. You wake up and immediately start auditing your existence. Did I do enough yesterday? Am I doing enough today? Will I do enough tomorrow? Am I good enough? Smart enough? Successful enough? Spiritual enough? Every moment becomes a test. Every interaction becomes a measurement. Every experience becomes data points in your constant self-evaluation. And you wonder why you can't relax, why you can't just be, why you can't enjoy anything without immediately analyzing whether you're enjoying it correctly. Because you've made life a problem to solve instead of an experience to have. You've turned existence into a project. And you're the anxious project manager constantly checking if you're on track, on budget, on point. But here's what you need to understand. Life is not a project. It's not a problem. It's not a test you can fail. It's a game, a dance, a improvisation. And the people who are actually living it, the ones who seem to move through life with ease and joy, they're not taking it less seriously. They're just not taking themselves so seriously. They've figured out something you haven't, that you can care about things without being crushed by them, that you can try without being attached to the outcome, that you can participate fully without making everything mean something about your worth. Watch a child play. Really watch them. They take the game seriously. They're fully invested. They care about winning, about the rules, about doing it right. But the moment it's over, they move on. No rumination, no self-criticism, no existential crisis about what their performance means about their value as a person. They played. It ended. They're already on to the next thing. That's not immaturity. That's wisdom. But you've lost that. You've been trained out of it. You've been taught that everything matters, that every choice is crucial, that one wrong move could ruin everything. So you've become paralyzed, heavy, serious, and you think that's what it means to be an adult, to be responsible, to be evolved. But it's not. It's just suffering disguised as maturity. Real maturity is knowing that most things don't matter as much as you think they do. Real responsibility is doing what needs to be done without making it a referendum on your entire existence. Real evolution is learning to hold life lightly, even as you engage with it fully. But you can't do that yet, because you're still convinced that seriousness equals importance. That if you stop taking everything so seriously, everything will fall apart. So let me show you what actually happens when you take life too seriously. Let me show you the 5 ways it destroys your ability to actually live. Let me show you what seriousness actually does to you. Imagine water, flowing water. It moves around obstacles. It adapts to the shape of whatever contains it. It finds the path of least resistance. And it's powerful. It carves canyons. It shapes landscapes. It sustains all life. But it's not rigid. It's not forcing. It's not serious about being water. It just flows. Now, imagine trying to make water serious, trying to make it concerned about being water correctly, trying to make it worry about whether it's flowing the right way. What happens? It stops flowing. It gets stuck. It becomes stagnant. And stagnant water, it dies. It becomes toxic. It breeds disease. This is what seriousness does to you. You stop flowing. You get stuck in analysis, in worry, in the constant evaluation of whether you're doing life right. And that stuckness, it breeds anxiety, depression, exhaustion, not because life is hard, but because you've made it hard by refusing to move with it. You're trying to control what was meant to be experienced. You're trying to perfect what was meant to be lived. You're trying to win a game that has no winning condition. And the effort of all that trying is killing you. Here's what you need to understand. Seriousness is a form of control. You think if you just take everything seriously enough, if you just think through every possibility, if you just prepare for every outcome, you'll finally be safe. But you won't, because life is unpredictable. No amount of seriousness will protect you from uncertainty. No amount of worry will prevent bad things from happening. No amount of analysis will give you the guarantee you're looking for. All that seriousness does is make you suffer while you wait for things you can't control to happen or not happen. It's like tensing your entire body before getting a shot. Does the tension make it hurt less? No, it makes it hurt more. But you do it anyway because the tension gives you the illusion of control, the illusion that you're doing something. That's what your seriousness is. Tension masquerading as control. And it's exhausting. You walk through life braced for impact, prepared for disaster, analyzing every variable. And you call this being responsible, being mature, being realistic. But it's not realistic, it's catastrophic thinking with a productivity spin. Real realism is understanding that most of what you worry about will never happen. Real maturity is doing what you can and releasing what you can't. Real responsibility is responding to what's actually in front of you, not to the 17 terrible scenarios you've imagined. But you can't do that, because your seriousness has convinced you that relaxing your grip means everything will fall apart. That if you stop worrying, you'll stop caring. That if you stop being heavy, you'll become shallow. So you hold on, you grip tighter, you take it all more seriously, and you wonder why you can't breathe. Here's the thing about breath. You can't force it. You can't control it into happening. You have to allow it. In, out, in, out. The moment you try to manage it, to perfect it, to make it serious, it becomes labored. Life is the same way. It's meant to be breathed, not controlled. Experienced, not perfected. Lived, not solved. But you've been trying to solve it, to figure it out, to get it right. And that's why you suffer. Not because life is hard, but because you've made the natural rhythm of existence into a problem that needs fixing. So let me show you exactly how this plays out. Let me show you the 5 ways that taking life too seriously destroys you from the inside out. Because until you see it clearly, until you see what your seriousness is actually costing you, you won't be able to let it go. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific ways that taking life too seriously destroys you. Not metaphorically, actually destroys you. Your joy, your relationships, your creativity, your peace, your life. And most people never see it. They think their suffering is just part of being a responsible adult, that the heaviness is just what maturity feels like. But it's not. It's what happens when you mistake tension for purpose, when you confuse anxiety for care, when you think that suffering somehow makes you more legitimate. Here are the 5 destructions. First, the death of joy, where you become so focused on doing everything right that you forget how to feel anything good. Second, the paralysis of choice, where you become so afraid of making the wrong decision that you stop making any decisions at all. Third, the suffocation of spontaneity, where you plan and control and prepare so much that you kill anything unexpected or alive. Fourth, the isolation of perfection, where your impossible standards push everyone away because no one can meet them, including you. Fifth, the forgetting, where you become so consumed with the performance of life that you forget you're actually alive. These aren't stages. They're simultaneous, overlapping, feeding each other. You're probably experiencing at least 3 of them right now, maybe all 5. And here's the brutal part. You think this is normal. You think everyone lives this way. Heavy, serious, constantly worried about getting it right. But they don't. Some people have figured out how to hold life lightly, how to care deeply without carrying everything, how to participate fully without making it all so damn heavy. And you want to know their secret? They stop taking themselves so seriously. Not life, themselves. They stop believing that everything they do is critically important, that every choice is make or break, that their existence is a constant evaluation of their worth. They just live. And when you watch them, you probably judge them. You think they're irresponsible, immature, not thinking things through. But they're not irresponsible, they're free. They've just stopped doing the thing you can't stop doing, making everything mean something about who they are. So as we go through these 5 destructions, I want you to notice something. Notice how much of your seriousness is actually about protecting your ego, protecting your image, protecting your idea of who you should be. Notice how much of your worry is about what other people think, about whether you're measuring up, about whether you're enough. Notice how little of it is actually about the task at hand, the moment you're in, the life you're living. Because that's the secret. Taking life seriously is almost never about life. It's about you, your fear, your insecurity, your desperate need to prove that you're good enough. And that need is running your whole existence, making you heavy when you could be light, making you rigid when you could be fluid, making you suffer when you could be free. So let's begin. Let's start with the first loss, the one that makes everything else feel pointless. The death of joy. The first thing that dies when you take life too seriously is joy, not happiness. You can still be happy occasionally, when things go right, when you achieve something, when you get external validation that you're doing okay. But joy? That's different. Joy is not conditional. It doesn't require anything to go right. It's not a reward for doing well. Joy is the natural state of being alive, of being present, of being engaged with existence without needing it to be anything other than what it is. And you've lost it, not because life took it from you, but because you traded it for something you thought was more important. Control, certainty, the appearance of having it all together. Here's what happened. You started believing that enjoyment is something you earn, that you can only feel good once everything is handled, once you've done enough, once you've proven you're responsible. So you work, you strive, you push, and you tell yourself that joy is waiting on the other side. Once you finish this project, once you get that promotion, once you solve that problem. But you never get there, because once you solve one problem, there's another. Once you reach one goal, there's the next. The finish line keeps moving, and joy keeps getting postponed, until postponing becomes your default, until not now becomes not ever. You're walking through a garden, but you can't see the flowers because you're too busy checking your map to make sure you're on the right path. You're having a conversation, but you can't enjoy it because you're too busy monitoring whether you're saying the right things. You're experiencing a moment, but you can't feel it because you're too busy judging whether you're experiencing it correctly. This is what seriousness does. It puts a filter between you and life. Everything has to pass through the analyzer, the evaluator, the internal judge that's constantly asking, is this productive? Is this important? Is this worth my time? And joy doesn't pass that test, because joy is not productive. It's not important in the way you define importance. It's not advancing you toward anything. So you dismiss it, postpone it, treat it like a luxury you can't afford. And you tell yourself you're being responsible, focused, mature, but you're not. Afraid that if you relax, everything will fall apart. Afraid that if you enjoy something without earning it, you're being irresponsible. Afraid that joy is somehow incompatible with being a serious person. So you stay serious, and joy stays distant. You watch other people laugh easily, and you think, must be nice to be that carefree. You see people enjoying simple things, and you think, I don't have time for that. You encounter moments of beauty, of lightness, of simple pleasure, and you think, I'll appreciate this later, once I've handled my responsibilities. But later never comes, because your responsibilities never end. There's always something to worry about, always something to fix, always something to optimize. And in the meantime, life is happening, right now, in this moment, but you're not here for it. You're too busy being serious about being alive to actually be alive. Here's what you need to understand. Joy is not frivolous. It's not a distraction from the real work of life. It is the real work. Because what's the point of doing everything right if you never enjoy any of it? What's the point of being responsible if responsibility means never feeling light? What's the point of success if success means carrying everything like a burden? You've won the game, but you're not celebrating. You've reached the destination, but you're not stopping to look around. You're so focused on getting it right that you've forgotten what right was supposed to give you in the first place, a good life. But a good life is not the same as a well-managed life. You can manage everything perfectly and still be miserable. You can control every variable and still be empty. You can do everything right and still feel like you're missing the whole point. And you are. Because the point was never to get it perfect. The point was to be here, present, alive, engaged. The point was to feel things, experience things, enjoy things. Not after you've earned it. Not once everything is handled, but now, in the mess, in the middle, in the imperfect, unfinished, uncertain middle of life. But you can't do that because you've made joy conditional on control. And control is an illusion you'll chase forever. So joy stays just out of reach, always almost there, always waiting for someday. And you keep being serious, keep working, keep striving, and you call it living. But it's not. It's just surviving with good intentions. And that's just the beginning, because when joy dies, decision-making becomes torture. The second destruction is paralysis. You can't decide anything anymore. Not big things, not small things. Everything has become impossible. What to eat for dinner, what career to pursue, whether to stay or go, whether to speak or stay silent. Every choice feels monumental. Every decision feels permanent. Every option feels like it could be the wrong one. So you freeze. You research. You analyze. You make pro and con lists. You ask for advice. You sleep on it. And then you research some more. Because what if you choose wrong? What if you miss something? What if there's a better option you haven't considered? This is what seriousness does to choice. It makes everything feel life or death. It convinces you that one wrong move will ruin everything, that you need to be absolutely certain before you act, that making a mistake is catastrophic. So you wait for certainty, for the right answer, for the perfect clarity that will make the decision obvious. But it never comes, because certainty doesn't exist, not in the way you want it to. Life is ambiguous. Choices have trade-offs. Every option has pros and cons. There is no perfect decision. There's just the decision you make and what you do with it afterward. But you can't accept that, because you've made your worth dependent on getting it right. If you make the wrong choice, it doesn't just mean you made a mistake. It means you're a mistake, that you're not smart enough, not wise enough, not good enough. So the stakes of every decision become impossibly high. And you can't move. You're stuck in analysis paralysis, in the limbo of perpetual consideration, in the hell of trying to think your way to certainty. And while you're stuck, life is passing by. Opportunities are closing. Relationships are fading. Time is moving. But you're still there, still thinking, still trying to figure out the right answer. Meanwhile, other people are just deciding and moving on. They're not smarter than you. They're not more certain than you. They've just accepted something you haven't, that making a choice is better than making no choice. That moving forward imperfectly is better than standing still perfectly. That you can always adjust, pivot, change course if needed. But you can't do that, because you've convinced yourself that every choice is irreversible. That once you decide, you're locked in. That you have to get it right the first time because there are no do-overs. But that's not true. Almost nothing is irreversible. You can change jobs. You can end relationships. You can move. You can start over. Very few decisions are actually permanent. Most are just the next step, not the final destination. But your seriousness has made everything feel final. So you wait, and wait, and wait. And the decision that could have been made in a moment becomes a months-long torture session. You lose sleep over it. You obsess over it. You make everyone around you discuss it endlessly. And still, you can't decide. Because the real issue isn't the decision. It's your belief that you can't handle the consequences of being wrong. That if you make a mistake, you'll collapse, that you can't recover. That one wrong choice will define you forever. But you've already made hundreds of wrong choices, thousands probably. And you're still here, still okay, still figuring it out. The wrong choices didn't destroy you. Your fear of them is what's destroying you. So you stay stuck, paralyzed by your own seriousness, imprisoned by your need to get it perfectly right. And life is happening elsewhere, to people who decided, who chose, who moved. Even if they chose wrong, at least they're moving, at least they're living. You're just thinking about living, planning to live, preparing to live, but never actually doing it. Because doing it requires accepting that you might mess up, that you might choose wrong, that you might regret it. And your seriousness can't tolerate that possibility. So you stay frozen, safe in your indecision, protected by your paralysis. But protection is just another word for prison. And you're locked in, waiting for permission that will never come, waiting for certainty that doesn't exist. While the door was never actually locked, you just never tried to open it. The third destruction is the death of spontaneity. You've scheduled spontaneity out of existence. Every moment is planned, every day is structured, every experience is researched, optimized, and pre-approved. You don't do anything without knowing exactly what to expect, without reading the reviews, without having a backup plan. And you think this makes you smart, prepared, responsible, but it makes you dead. Not literally, but the part of you that's alive, the part that's curious and adventurous and responsive to the moment, that part is suffocating. Because real life doesn't happen in the plan. It happens in the deviation, in the unexpected conversation, in the sudden opportunity, in the moment you say yes without thinking it through. But you never say yes without thinking it through. You think everything through. You analyze. You project. You prepare. And by the time you're ready, the moment is gone. Someone invites you somewhere, and your first thought is, let me check my schedule. An opportunity appears, and your first response is, let me think about it. A beautiful moment presents itself, and you're too busy documenting it to actually experience it. You've optimized all the life out of your life. You've traded aliveness for control, magic for predictability, adventure for safety. And you don't even realize what you've lost, because you've forgotten what spontaneity feels like. You've forgotten what it's like to act on impulse, to follow your instinct, to do something just because it feels right in the moment. You've trained yourself to distrust that impulse, to question that instinct, to override that feeling with logic. And logic is great. Logic has its place. But logic can't create magic. Logic can't surprise you. Logic can't take you somewhere you didn't know you needed to go. Only spontaneity can do that. But spontaneity requires trust. Trust that you can handle what comes. Trust that not knowing is okay. Trust that you don't need to control everything. And you don't have that trust because your seriousness has convinced you that control is the only thing keeping chaos at bay. That if you loosen your grip, everything will spiral. That structure is the only thing standing between you and disaster. So you hold on, you plan, you prepare, and you miss everything. You miss the conversation that could have changed your perspective because you were too busy checking your phone. You miss the opportunity that could have opened new doors because you were too busy weighing the risks. You miss the connection that could have become meaningful because you were too busy protecting yourself from potential disappointment. You're so busy managing life that you're not living it. And the saddest part? You think you're doing the right thing. You think that your planning, your preparation, your careful consideration is making your life better. But it's not. It's making your life smaller, safer maybe, more predictable definitely, but smaller, flatter, less alive. Because aliveness requires risk. It requires the possibility of things not going according to plan. It requires being willing to not know what happens next. And you're not willing. Not anymore. You've planned the uncertainty out of your life. You've scheduled over the mystery. You've researched away the adventure. And now you're bored. Not the good kind of bored that leads to creativity. The dead kind of bored where every day feels the same because every day is the same. You've created a life that's safe and predictable and completely devoid of surprise. And you wonder why you don't feel excited about anything anymore. It's because excitement requires not knowing. It requires the possibility of surprise. It requires being open to something you didn't plan for. But you've closed yourself off. You've built walls. You've created systems. And those systems are suffocating you. You're trapped in the life you so carefully constructed. And it feels like a cage. Not because it's bad, but because it's rigid. Because there's no room for anything unexpected. No space for anything spontaneous. Just the plan, just the schedule, just the same predictable patterns over and over. And you call this maturity. This is what responsible adults do, you tell yourself. But it's not maturity. It's fear masquerading as prudence. Real maturity is being structured enough to be responsible and loose enough to be alive. But you're all structure and no looseness, all planning and no presence. And that rigidity is killing the very thing that makes life worth living, the aliveness of not knowing what comes next. The fourth destruction is loneliness. Not the kind where you have no one. You probably have people, friends, family, connections, but you're still alone because no one actually knows you. How could they? You won't let them see you. You've become so serious about presenting well, about having it together, about being impressive that you've made yourself unknowable. You share the highlight reel, the achievements, the parts of you that are polished and acceptable. But the mess, the doubt, the fear, the parts of you that are still figuring it out, those stay hidden because they don't fit the image of the serious, capable, together person you're trying to be. And you think this is protecting you, that if you just show the good parts, people will like you more, accept you more, think you're worthy. But it's not protection. It's isolation. Because when people only see you're perfect, they can't connect to your real. And connection requires real. It requires vulnerability. It requires letting people see you when you're not impressive. But you can't do that because your seriousness has made you believe that being seen as anything less than competent is dangerous. That if people see you struggling, they'll think you're weak. That if people see you uncertain, they'll lose respect for you. That if people see you imperfect, they'll reject you. So you perform. You maintain the image. You hold it together. And people admire you from a distance. They think you're so capable, so strong, so together. But they don't know you. They know the version of you that you're willing to show. And that version isn't real. It's curated. It's managed. It's the best possible version of you on the best possible day. But you're not always having your best day. And you're not always your best version. Sometimes you're scared. Sometimes you're lost. Sometimes you have no idea what you're doing. But you can't say that. Because saying that would ruin the image, would make you look less than, would reveal that you're not as serious and capable as you appear. So you stay silent. You smile. You pretend. And the gap between who you are and who you present yourself as grows wider, until you're not even sure anymore. Which one is real, the image or the truth? And that uncertainty is isolating in a different way, because you're not just disconnected from others, you're disconnected from yourself. You've become so focused on managing how you're perceived that you've lost touch with what you actually feel. You don't know what you need because you're too busy making sure no one thinks you're needy. You don't know what you want because you're too busy wanting what you think you should want. You don't know who you are because you've become who you think you need to be. And that's the cruelest part of this destruction. It's not just that others can't know you. It's that you can't know yourself. Your seriousness has created an internal police state where certain thoughts, certain feelings, certain desires are not allowed because they're not serious enough, not mature enough, not impressive enough. So they get suppressed. And you present this clean, controlled, serious version. But that version is exhausting to maintain because it's not actually you, it's a performance. And performances require constant energy, constant vigilance, constant management. You can never fully relax because relaxing means the mask might slip, the image might crack, the truth might show. So you stay tense, stay controlled, stay serious. And you wonder why your relationships feel superficial, why conversations feel empty, why no one really gets you. It's because you won't let them. You've made yourself a fortress. And fortresses are great for protection, but terrible for connection. No one can get in. But you can't get out either. You're trapped behind walls you built, isolated by standards you set, alone in a prison of your own perfectionism. And the saddest part, the people who could love you, the ones who could really see you and accept you, they're out there, but they can't find you because you're hiding behind the serious, perfect, together version that isn't actually you. So you stay lonely, surrounded by people who admire you but don't know you, connected to people who like your image but have never met your truth. And you tell yourself this is just how it is, that everyone is lonely in their own way, that this is normal, but it's not. Some people have found a way to be real, to be imperfect, to be known. They've just stopped taking themselves so seriously that they can't be seen. The fifth and final destruction is the most tragic. You forget you're alive, not intellectually. You know you're alive. You can feel your heartbeat. You can see yourself moving through the world. But experientially, you've forgotten. You've become so consumed with managing life that you're not experiencing life. You're not here. You're in your head, planning, analyzing, preparing for what's next. You're eating but not tasting. You're seeing but not noticing. You're breathing but not feeling. You've become a ghost in your own existence, present physically but absent experientially. And you don't even realize it's happening because it happens slowly, one distracted moment at a time. One conversation where you're thinking about what to say next instead of listening. One meal where you're checking your phone instead of tasting the food. One sunset you miss because you're worried about tomorrow. Each moment you're somewhere else, someplace in the future, someplace in your head, never here, never now, never fully alive. And the irony is brutal. You're taking life so seriously that you're not living it. You're so focused on doing it right that you're missing doing it at all. You're so busy being a good person, a successful person, a responsible person, that you've forgotten to be a person, to feel things, to experience things, to be moved by things. When was the last time something took your breath away? When was the last time you were so absorbed in a moment that time disappeared? When was the last time you felt fully, completely, utterly alive? You can't remember, because you're not allowing those moments anymore. You're too controlled, too managed, too serious. Those moments require surrender. They require letting go. They require being willing to not know, not control, not manage. And you can't do that because your entire identity is built on control. So you miss it, all of it. The beauty that's right in front of you, the love that's being offered, the joy that's available. You're too busy making sure you're doing everything right to notice that right doesn't mean anything if you're not present for it. You've optimized your life to the point of lifelessness. You've structured your days so carefully that there's no room for living in them. You've become so efficient at being alive that you've forgotten what aliveness feels like. And here's what breaks my heart. You're proud of this. You're proud of how together you are, how managed your life is, how seriously you take everything. You think this is success, that this is what winning looks like. But you're not winning. You're disappearing. You're fading into the background of your own life, becoming a supporting character in your own story, all while telling yourself you're being responsible, mature, serious. But there's nothing mature about forgetting you're alive. There's nothing responsible about being so controlled that you can't feel anything. There's nothing serious about taking life so seriously that you miss living it. You've confused management with meaning, productivity with presence, control with consciousness. And in that confusion, you've lost the most precious thing you have this moment, right now, this breath, this life. It's happening. Whether you're present for it or not, whether you're managing it or not, whether you're taking it seriously or not, life is happening. And you're missing it, not because you're not there, but because you're not here. You're somewhere in the future, worried about what's coming, or somewhere in the past, analyzing what happened. But you're not here, in this moment, in this life, in this experience of being alive. And that forgetting, that's the final destruction. Because you can recover from joylessness. You can work through paralysis. You can loosen your grip on control. You can drop the perfect image. But if you forget you're alive, if you spend your entire life managing your existence instead of experiencing it, you can't get that back. Those moments are gone. That time is over. And all you're left with is the memory of a life well managed, but never truly lived. A serious life, a responsible life, a controlled life, but not an alive life. And what's the point of doing everything right if you were never really here for any of it? So here you are. Maybe you recognized yourself in all 5 destructions. Maybe just a few. Maybe one hit so hard you had to stop reading for a moment. Wherever you are, hear this: you're not broken. You're just serious. And seriousness is a habit, not a personality, which means you can change it. Not by trying to be less serious, that would just be another thing to take seriously, but by remembering something simple. Life is not a problem to solve. It's an experience to have. You don't need to get it right. You don't need to have it figured out. You don't need to be perfect at living. You just need to be here for it. And being here requires letting go of the belief that suffering equals depth, that heaviness equals importance, that seriousness equals care. It doesn't. You can care deeply about things without carrying them like stones. You can be responsible without being rigid. You can be thoughtful without being tormented. The people you admire, the ones who seem to move through life with ease, they're not taking life less seriously than you. They're just not taking themselves so seriously. They've learned to hold their existence lightly, to participate fully without making everything mean something about their worth. They've learned that mistakes are just information, not indictments. That failure is just feedback, not identity. That uncertainty is just reality, not catastrophe. And most importantly, they've learned that life is happening now, not later, after they've got everything figured out. Not once they've achieved enough or controlled enough or perfected enough. Now, in this imperfect, uncertain, uncontrolled moment. So what do? You start small. You don't need to change everything at once. Just notice. Notice when you're taking something too seriously, when you're making something harder than it needs to be, when you're suffering over something that doesn't require suffering. And in that noticing, ask yourself, what if this doesn't have to be so heavy? What if I can care about this without carrying it like a burden? What if I can do my best without making my worth dependent on the outcome? What if I can be here, fully present, without needing to control or perfect or manage everything? Just try it. For one moment, one conversation, one decision. What if you approached it lightly, with curiosity instead of control, with openness instead of fear? What if you allowed yourself to not know, to make mistakes, to be imperfect? What if you gave yourself permission to just be here, alive, real, without needing to prove anything? I know it feels risky. I know your seriousness has convinced you that lightness equals carelessness. But it doesn't. You can be light and still show up. You can be playful and still be responsible. You can be easy and still be deep. In fact, the most profound people I've ever met are the ones who hold life lightly. They're not flaky. They're not irresponsible. They're not shallow. They're just not suffering unnecessarily. They're just not making everything harder than it needs to be. They've learned the secret that you can take action seriously without taking yourself seriously, that you can care about outcomes without being attached to them, that you can participate fully in life without making it a referendum on your worth. And when you learn that, when you finally let go of the need to be serious about everything, something miraculous happens. You start living, not performing life, not managing life, not perfecting life, just living it, fully, presently, lightly. And you realize that this ease, this presence, this aliveness, this was always what you were looking for. Not in the achievement, not in the control, not in the perfect management of everything, but here, in the lightness, in the letting go, in the simple, profound act of being alive without making it so damn serious. So let go, just a little, just for a moment. Feel what it's like to hold your existence lightly, to breathe without analyzing the breath, to make a choice without agonizing over it, to experience a moment without documenting it, to just be here, alive, real, imperfect, and discover that life was never meant to be carried like a cross. It was meant to be danced.